This is how you get fluent in English fast. You just need to follow this simple 3-step plan, and you will be speaking fluent English pretty soon, in a matter of months, if you are consistent and you do all these 3 things every single day. All right. Fluency in English is something that seems impossible for a lot of people, especially in the Spanish speaking world, but also in many other countries. People go to classes for years, many years, and they still struggle to string 2 sentences together. They don't understand anything. This is the case. Most people, actually, this happens still, unfortunately, to most people in many countries. And the solution is pretty simple. You can implement this on your own starting today. All right. 3 simple steps. You need to do basically three things. You need to learn sentences, a lot of sentences, practical, useful sentences, the things that you want to be able to say in real conversations. You need to prepare those, and you need to learn them in English. That's it. You need to prepare a list of the sentences you want to be able to say in English, and you need to learn them by listening to them and saying them aloud a lot. That's basically it. I just fixed language learning for you. How do you do this? Well, using language islands. Language islands are this concept that I stole from this guy called Boris Shechtman, or Boris Shechtman, if you are Boris Shechtman, if you are Russian, linguist that was really successful and that wrote a bunch of books, and he trained a bunch of American journalists and diplomats, basically anyone American who was back in the day when people used to go to Russia. Well, he trained them and he helped them get good at speaking Russian. So yeah, I learned this concept, this idea, this technique from his book. Right? It's not an original idea. Nothing's original, really. Everything's copied from someone else. If you go to language YouTube, half of the people now are copying my videos. Not half, but there are a bunch of them. I know who they are. But basically, this is it, right? You need to write down everything, specifically for each scenario, for each conversation topic, for each situation you think you will have, the things you normally talk about, and you create audio files. And people ask me, how can I create audio files if my English is not good? No, you don't record yourself speaking. You go to text to speech software like 11 Labs or TTS Maker, or there are many others. I recommend TTS Maker because it's cheap and it's very easy to use. 11 Labs creates better audio. It can create better quality audio, much more natural sounding, but it can also mess up quite badly. So the easiest option is TTS Maker, and you create audio files for your sentences there, create playlists with them, and you listen to them and you repeat them aloud over and over again. Like I said, 3 things: preparing sentences, which is the most time-consuming thing, then listening to them a lot, repeating them aloud a lot, and that's basically it. Yeah, you have to keep adding more and more stuff to the list. You have to listen to it while reading at first if you don't understand at all, and then you have to speak it aloud by either reading it aloud if you've been doing a lot of listening and you know what pronunciation should sound like, or shadowing, so listening and repeating. Or you can also practice your speaking by doing active recall. This means translating into English. You read the sentences in your native language, so in this case, Spanish, and you try to say them in English, and then you check if you said it correctly or not. Of course, this won't work your pronunciation, but shadowing will correct will work your pronunciation. So if you do active recall to learn to think in English, and then you do shadowing to, oh, probably shadowing first better. So you work on your pronunciation first, and then uh, you try to say them from memory, translate, and then see if you use the right words and the right grammar. And eventually you learn to think fast in English, and you'll be able to speak fluently. Now, the main problem for most people is coming up with things to say. Language islands. So, in my experience, there are basically two types of language islands. There are situations or contexts, and there are topics. So, the first one should be short and basic and functional. Situations and interactions. You go to the airport and you are talking to the taxi driver, things like that. Like you need to get something done. Short, simple sentences to get your point across, and you have your interaction successfully without struggling. Or if you want to have longer, more complex interactions, you can work on that as well. But that's basically it. Interactions are for survival at first, so you're not just lost there when you're on holiday or when you're traveling. You actually can survive in English, and then later on just thrive by learning, preparing enough interactions. And then conversation topics, which basically means all the things you normally talk about, whatever you're into, football, politics, uh, films, whatever things you normally talk about, uh, celebrities, whatever nonsense you normally talk about. You write all of that, all the sentences you say, and you translate them into English, and you drill those. You read them aloud, you listen to them, you repeat them until you know them by heart. And if you do this with 1,000, 2,000 good sentences that you will actually use, you will be fluent in English. And you won't be afraid of speaking in front of people because, well, you've been repeating those sentences aloud all the time. So you'll just be doing exactly what you've been doing on your own, but in front of people. The only difference is that you'll have to understand them. But that's a topic for another video.